FastHTML can transform a multi-page application into a single-page application. How do we utilize HTMX? To do that using FastHTML. Let's transform my application lead magnet from a multi-page application to a single-page application. And what do you say? Doing less as a single-page application. Will we see any performance gains? What does my sample application do? It is a lead magnet application. It gives out a PDF in exchange for email and name information. If we make a drawing of how it looks today as a multi-page application, these are the different pages that we are jumping around in. Now, it's only the sign-up part, so the 3 pages in a circle, that we will translate into a single page application. The actual delivery of the PDF can be seen as a single page application as it is today. So we will just leave that one out for now. So these are the 3 pages that we will transform. It's the welcome page, the form page, and the thank you page. And here we have my want. I want to keep the top with the title, and I want to keep the bottom part as a navigation. I just want to switch out the content of the middle card or the actual content. So that is my vision for a single page application. So how do we design this card flipping as a single page application using HTMX? There are actually 4 actions in HTMX that we need to look at. The first one is delete, and that is typically used to delete a button after it's been pressed or delete some text after something else happened. The second one is append, and that is, for instance, to put a new line in the end of a bullet list. And then we have prepend, and that is, for instance, to put a line on the top of a bullet list. And for the fourth, swap. And swap exchanges some piece of HTML with another piece of HTML. So when we implement swapping our cards, we will be using the action swap. If you want to know more about FastHTML, then subscribe to this channel, because I have a few more videos coming up quite soon on this topic. So apart from the actions, what is more of importance here? The scope of each action. The default scope of one action, say delete, that is the HTML part that called for the action. So if you pull a delete on a button, it will just remove itself. That is the default scope, the caller HTML. Now we want to exchange the entire card. That is a much larger piece. And then we're using something that's called out of bounds. There are 3 ways to implement out of bounds, but I will only look at the easiest way. And that is to have an ID and then set the swap OOB equals to true. In our case, we will set an ID on the content card when we define it and just call it content. So transforming this code, we need to do 3 things. 1. Put an ID on the content card, calling it ID equals content. And then we also define this card to have the HX swap OOB equals to true. This means we're allowed to swap out the entire content. Secondly, we need to define the action of the first button to be HX post to the root. And thirdly, we need to set up a function of post for root that actually returns the content of the card, which contains the actual forms for entering this information we need. In other words, returning the card of the sign-up form information. So let's take a quick peek on the code. First, we have the initial HTML code, which sets up the page from the welcome site. That one contains the button that points further to the post root. And then we have the post root function, which actually returns the function. Now we have a third card as well. So this function, when we have filled in all the details and we press sign up, this sign up button will go to an HX function as well. So we need to change the form so it returns an HX post function itself. This one goes to the HX post dash sign up. This is not really a change of page. It is just internal routing. And for the last part for this one, we need to change the handler function for this form. As before, we wanted to set up and send the email, and we wanted to talk to the database. But in this case, we don't want it to swip to a new page. We wanted to return the thank you message to the card in question. And let's take a quick look at that information as well. If we're talking about handling the email in the database, look in this video where everything on that part is explained. There's no changes in those parts. So, after we have this, we actually have a single page application, the one that we wanted to have. Let's celebrate. Now, what do we need to remember from this one? Yeah, we have 4 actions: swap, delete, prepend, and append. And then we have the local scope or the out-of-bound scope. So, if everything is just hanky-dory, let's just run it. And while we do that, wouldn't it be interesting to look at the actual messages going back and forth to HTMX? I will look at this application using Firefox, and to see the messages, I'm using Tools for Web Developers. Here we have the first message. The TX message is just a empty get message, and it returns the HTML code. And this is what is shown in the RX message, the full HTML page of the welcome message. Now the second message. This is when we press the button to go to the sign up page. This is in the TX message of the second. It doesn't really contain anything. It's just a post to root as we designed earlier. If we look in the RX part of this one, this is actually the HTML code of the card for the sign up form. as we wanted. And then, if we have filled out the form and press sign up, we can see in the third message, first on the TX part, the form data that we have entered is transferred over to the server, and in the RX part, we have the answer back from that function. And that is the information from the thank you page. I find it quite easy to understand what's happening and what's happening to the DOM model if you're using a tool like Tools for Web Developers or something similar. If you don't like Firefox, why don't you use Chrome? They have the same toolset. Now we have a running application. Wouldn't it be interesting to take a look at the statistics for the multi-page application compared to the single-page application? First of all, we have the code stats. If we look at them, we see that there are small reductions in code, but it's not really significant. Secondly, we look at the packets sent between the server and the client. Here we actually see a small increase, but it is small, not really significant, at least for this application. And finally, I'm looking at the runtime of the test suite. We're looking at 6.6 seconds compared to 6.3 seconds. It's a very minor reduction. So, all in all, minimal changes, I would like to say. Perhaps I need some better measurements to see any real difference here. But I'd say multi-page application or single-page application, in this case, it's just the same. So we're starting to get near a better answer on the question of what is actually fast in FastHTML. Running it, it is about the same speed as a multi-page application, which is about the same speed as a Django application. So actually the running speeds are compared for any kind of framework that you use, at least for this type of application. So the only thing that I can see is actually writing the code is fast, if you can keep the rules in your head. And that is the 4 actions and the scope of those actions. So all applications that I've done with FastHTML up to this point has been styled with the default Pico CSS package. This is the default one used for FastHTML. But how can you be a bit more individual? Next video, I will venture far, far away from Pico CSS in how to style FastHTML. To not miss out on any more content on FastHTML, do subscribe. When the next video is ready, it will show up here. So click it and I will see you in there in just a second.